Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dina. I'm one of the team here at Elderwerks Educational Services. Friendly reminder, Elderworks is a non-for-profit organization that provides complimentary services by our team for seniors and their families, all about aging counseling, aging resources, um, everything from senior housing to care solutions to benefits, different things like that. So if you need anything or know someone who does, please feel free to reach out to us here at Elderworks. Today's presentation is connecting with your grandchildren. And Chris, our director of education here at Elderworks, a grandma herself, although I believe she goes by Gigi, um, is here to share that presentation. Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dina. Before I get started, I'm just gonna hide some of these bars for us so you don't have a lot in your way. But thank you for joining us today with connecting with your grandchildren. So, family relationships throughout history has identified grandparents as playing an important role in helping parents guarantee the physical survival of their children. But the involvement of grandparents can help their children's resilience and overall healthy development. Researchers at Melbourne University recently took a different approach and demonstrated the cognitive benefits to grandparents of watching a grandchild for 1 day a week. So, to say the least, it seems that embracing the grandparent grandchild connections leads to benefits on both sides. Many of us grandparents have opportunities to develop an exclusive place in our children's lives and in their hearts. This was easier to do when families were closer in location. They develop ties, but we can still do that with children, grandchildren that are far away. And you'll want to see them whenever possible. And we can use modern technology and modes of communication to do that. We take on many roles as grandparents. We're advisors, we're encouragers, we're advocates, we're cheerleaders, and that's just to name a few. Whether we see our grandchildren once a week, every day, monthly, via Zoom, our connection to our grandchildren has been proven to be important. Although I'm presenting this program and I am a grandparent to four boys and 3 girls, I am certainly not the expert. There are many books written on grandparenting by child psychologists and experts in human development, but the best advice comes from those who have grandparented and what worked for them, because we know that each family dynamic is different, each grandchild is different, and each grandparent is different. So we know that's not one size fits all, but following some practical advice may help you along the way. Hopefully, at the end of this session, we can share other ideas that had worked for you. Let me grab a little sip here. The storm riled up a lot of pollen last night. So, a lot of these tips, these friendly reminders, are just things that you probably have thought about before with your own children, but it's nice when it resurfaces with your grandchildren. So the first one is watch your expectations. You know, I once heard someone say expectations are preconceived resentments. Don't we know that from our own past? It's often true that our disappointments are fueled by unmet expectations. So we should pay attention to the words that we use, the oughts and the should statements that roll around in our head, particularly concerning your relationship with your children and your grandchildren. He should call more. She should consult me about this. Those are phrases we don't want to think about. These unrealistic expectations feed disappointment and discouragement, while realistic expectations keep you engaged and content with where your relationship is in the here and now. If your preschool aged grandchild FaceTimes you all of the 15 seconds with you and then heads off to another activity, that's pretty normal. If your teenage grandson doesn't call back or responds to you the next day by text, that's also normal. Don't make it about you. Life doesn't always happen the way we think it should. And as grandparents, we must allow for busy seasons of life and grandchildren's growing maturity. The next one is there's not a grandparent prerogative. I knew someone whose son and daughter-in-law, they don't allow Marge to have the kids for an overnight. They used to, but Marge didn't follow any of the instructions for caring for the children. They asked that bedtime be at 8 o'clock, but Marge always got them in bed an hour or two later. She also bought out some cookies at bedtime when mom and dad said, nothing after 6 o'clock at night. Don't give them anything with sugar. She felt that her job was to spoil them rotten and do whatever she wanted to do with them. And so because of that, she doesn't get to see those grandchildren very often. Even if you're not doing anything wrong or spoiling your grandchildren, I really suggest that you bite your tongue. It's hard to do, I know. I have to do it myself. And do things the parents' way. They are the authority to their children, and they need the respect and support from us to follow through on that. We are not the authorities. We help support them in that. Remember that you're now an extended family for your children and grandchildren. Your son and daughter has a family, and he or she must consider them ahead of you. This is hard. It's a transition, but it's really important. Don't influence. You want to influence, but you don't want to control. Grandparents have years of experience that they long to leverage in their kids' and grandkids' lives. Sometimes that desire moves from seeking influence to wanting control. This can alienate the relationships and bonds with your grandchildren. When there are two valid ways to do something, and I want it done my way, it becomes about control then and not really about the relationship anymore. So really, the orders on this are to love, to encourage, to accept, and give wisdom when it's requested. And that's the hard part, when it's requested. Intentionally stay connected. My grandmother mothered from a distance before there was FaceTime or social media. She used the phone and mail. Remember mail? We used to write letters and personal visits. When our children were young and not yet readers, she signed all their cards and notes with a simple hand-drawn heart with an arrow through it. When they would open up that card, they knew it was from their grandmother. The kids always knew that it came from her heart, and that was her heart. Staying connected on a regular basis builds trust and strengthens that relationship for your grandchildren. Our grade school grandkids are all set up on Kids Messenger, and they communicate a lot with us that way. So I know if I can't get to a game for one of the kids, they'll message me on Kids Messenger, which is a little bit different than Facebook or, the adult version of Messenger. And they can connect with me and let me know how they did on their game. My sister, who's actually visiting her 16-year-old, they have 3 grandchildren that live in Colorado, and they just flew out there today for the one's graduation from grade school. But it was kind of cute. Last week, the one boy who turned 16 has called my sister to tell her that he has a girlfriend. He said, Nana, I think I like this girl and she likes me back. And she said, well, that's great. Tell me about her. And so he explained her, he described her, she's in his classes, and they connected. Now, that connection didn't happen yesterday. That connection has been fostered for many, many years. Those 16 years that he knew he could always reach out to Nana to tell him his deepest, darkest secrets if he wanted to, and he knew it was safe there. So staying intentionally connected is important. And if you haven't started doing that, you really want to think about that. Engage in their world, take an interest in their activities, ask them to share their school papers, show delight when they get their first job. If you live close enough, you can help them with homework or attend their sporting events or choir events. You know, I have one to three kids that are in soccer. And so the kids know that I have to share my time in their soccer games. And of course, they're always on the weekends. And so they all get their turns, but I also call them that day of their soccer game to find out how they did. You know, did they score? And if they said, no, I didn't score, well, did you assist? And then I kind of talk about how important it is to assisting that kid, that, you know, the team would not have scored had it not been for the opportunity of my grandchild to assist them. So, you know, you try to build them up even though you weren't there. I have a 6-year-old who got Super Mario. They call it Mario Kart, I guess. And he got that for Christmas this year. And we have the privilege of watching him when he gets home from kindergarten. And we were at his house that one day and he was playing Mario Kart. So he asked me to sit down with him, and I said, can I try it? And he, you know, let me try it. He begrudgingly let me try it. And of course I couldn't keep anything on you know, the road it was supposed to be on, whatever you call it. But and anyways, he said, here, I'll take it back. And I got up to leave and he said, no, I want you to sit next to me. You can watch me play this. Now, what can be the most boringest thing for a grandparent to do than watch their grandchild play a video game? But I sat there for at least 30 minutes and I watched his game because that's what he wanted. He just wanted me next to him. For some reason, that was important to him. So you try to engage in their world. I tried to ask him questions, and when he won, I applauded. I didn't know what I was applauding for, but if it made him happy, I was happy. So you try to find those little things that you can pick on each. I have a granddaughter who's 16, and she loves music. So there was a small concert. It wasn't expensive to go to, and I asked her if she'd like to join my husband and I, and she said yes, but she said, can I bring my boyfriend with? And you know, I kind of thought about that. I really wanted to spend the time with my granddaughter, but it gave me an opportunity to get to know her, my husband and I, to get to know the person that is today the most important person in her life. Might be someone, hopefully someone different later. I mean, life develops and moves on. But the point is, if I said no, then she may not have been enjoying it as much as she did. And we had the opportunity to get to know this friend of hers. So it really is important to engage in their world. There's going to be times when you have the opportunity to have that one-on-one time with that grandchild, and that one-on-one time is really important as well. It helps us see them as individuals. You know, they're all trying to figure out who they are and what they are in this world, what excites them. And even if you can get that one-on-one time, even if it's from afar, you know, have FaceTime with one of the grandchildren at a certain time. I think because of COVID, we really had the opportunity to use FaceTime a little more frequently. And one of the things that you can do on FaceTime that kind of is kind of fun is Hangman, you know, which is really just kind of Wheel of Fortune. You know, you're trying to figure out a word, but that keeps them engaged, especially when they're about 9 to 10-year-old, remember the attention span is going to be a little bit different in the different age groups. So you want to find something that you can connect with them one-on-one, either in person or, online. I think it's really important to replace judgment with love. There are going to be things your kids' parents are going to do that you don't agree with. And there will be choices your grandchildren make that you don't agree with. Never sacrifice your bond on the altar of disagreement. Orange hair, let it go. Tattoos, let it go and love them anyways, if you're not a tattoo person. Some friends of ours have a grandson who said he was gay. Their response to their grandson balanced the truth with their love for their grandson. We don't feel that this will be the best for you, but you'll always be ours, and we love you unconditionally. That was the best thing they could have said with them, is we love you unconditionally. Acceptance never means agreeing. It means accepting the reality of your grandchild's circumstances and loving them through that process. Next is connecting through books. Books can be one of the best continuing channels for your grandchild. When they're younger, we're singing lullabies and nursery rhymes. And when you begin to read to them, you should really think about doing that as soon as possible. Imprint into their memory the sound of a rhythmic voice and the rustle of a turning page. Read what your grandchildren are reading. Ask what they think. Talk briefly about what puzzled you, pleased you, or annoyed you about what they're reading. Give them books that their parent enjoyed, and enjoy the rereading it yourself. I know my son loved the book Babar. It was I believe it was an elephant, and he had the series, and we saved them all. And when Brad became a parent, we gave him the Babar books, and he shared them with his children, and we got to read those again. So it was kind of a nice reminiscing. It was like reading to Brad all over again. The rush and noise of the day is suspended temporarily and offers that chance for reflection when you read a book to a child, and then you never know where that conversation is going to lead. The other books that my grandkids loved was Where's Waldo? And my one grandson, still at 6, will sit and he'll open up one of his Where Waldo books, and we have to find Waldo, and he does quite a good job. I'm not so good in it, but it starts conversations. Why do you think he wears that big hat? Why do you think he's mixed in with all these in a city like this? So it really implements a conversation. Stay connected with extended family. That's really important. Cousins, aunts, uncles are in a special place between the nuclear family and the rest of the world. In today's small families, your grandchildren's older cousins can be especially important as their upcoming role models, and the younger cousins can provide them with opportunities to practice caregiving. By making occasions for this group of people, your grandchildren will get together. They'll enrich their lives and their memory. So having a large family gathering when you can, and I know, again, our world is so different than it was 50, 60 years ago because we're spread all over the place. But when you do have that opportunity to have a family reunion, it's really important. It gives that child the opportunity to see where their roots were, where they began, and the likeness of it all. This really is important, but again, I know that you don't have the opportunity to do this. I know that, I have another sister whose her 3 daughters are One is in Texas, one is in Oregon, and one is about 5 hours away between the border of Iowa and Minnesota. So, their spread outs are once a week. They do on Sunday night, they do a Zoom call and everybody joins them. And it's about a 10 or a 15 minute. My sister has organized usually a game that they'll play. They'll talk for a few minutes and then they'll play a game. And it lasts about maybe 20, 30 minutes, but it's a time for that family to connect and get together. Grandparents, grandchildren are like our grandparents' link to the future. Grandparents are the child's link to the past. That's why I think it's really important for us to get to know our cousins. My kids were real fortunate. We grew up on the same block as my sister. So her three children and my three children actually for quite a long time probably thought they were siblings. But they have a very close bond now as adults, and they may not all see each other all the time, but they know who they are. They've got their backs. They celebrate. They try to celebrate the holidays together. And as a matter of fact, when the nuclear family was getting so big and we thought we may need to break up Christmas, the young kids got together and said, we absolutely cannot do that. And my one nephew who's got the biggest house kind of decided that he was going to have it, and we still didn't fit. I mean, there's almost oh gosh, maybe 28 people, 30 people in our nuclear families, and that's counting cousins. So now we have something called garage Christmas, and the kids love it. So we have, our meal and we enjoy, and then we play some games, and we go into, he has a nice big heated garage. He decorates it for the holidays, and the kids call it garage Christmas now, and we can't do anything else. That is their tradition, and we're going to talk about traditions in a minute. And I told you to follow the family's rules, follow your kids' rules as far as raising their children, but we can also set our own rules. Don't be afraid of setting those rules. It really helps them grow into the world that has rules. So if you say, one of my rules is no food on the couch. I got a new couch a couple years ago. I want it to last, and the kids are old enough to know that our couch is right off of our kitchen, and there is a counter they can sit at and eat. So there's no food on the couch anymore. And it's something that I enforce. Do they hate me for it? No. Just like they don't hate their own parents for their rules. So we can set our own rules. It's going to help them in life when we provide those rules. I love this. I don't love this saying called benign neglect. It's like, couldn't they think of a different name for this? But as I was looking at things to pull into this program, I came across this, and benign neglect really is, in our terms as older adults, letting kids be creative, letting them work on their own. You don't have to organize every single thing for them and have every supply for them. It's okay for them to take some leaves and play with the leaves, or take a bunch of pencils and make a little fort with that, or take a blanket and make a fort with a blanket over the couch. Let them be creative on their own, because again, this is developmentally important. And if we do too much for them, we're not going to help them grow into the adults that they should be. So that's what they call benign neglect. Not my favorite saying. Let me see. I don't know if you can see this, but be yourself. Sometimes we try to be the best we can, and we get outside of being ourselves. So we need to be just who we are. We don't want to be their equal. We want to be their grandparents, so we need to be ourselves. Use your own language. be yourself. Don't try to use the current slang. I will tell you, by the time you have some idea of what that means, it's probably out of date anyways. So, really be true to yourself. You can expand the vocabulary of your grandchild and introduce them to new words and traditional sayings. But always be true to yourself. It was funny because last week, I said, "Oh, it's raining cats and dogs out," and my 6-year-old grandson, my 10-year-old grandson were with me, and they kind of looked at me, and I said, "Well, do you know what that means?" And they said, "Well, it doesn't mean that it's raining a lot." And I said, "Yes, it does." I said, "But you know where they got that from?" And I explained how in the old English countryside, when the houses were heated by the fire in the house, the fireplace in the house, they would put their cats and dogs on the thatched roofs to sleep for the night because it would keep them warmer. But when it rained a lot, they'd slide off. And that's where that term, "it's raining cats and dogs," came from. So a little education, it was a new saying, a little bit of knowledge. They probably forgot it as they moved on, but maybe they'll have some recall of that someday. So keep on good terms with your grandchildren's parents. I think that's really important. It's it's vital to keep the best possible terms with your grandchild's parents, both your own and your child, your own child's partner. The more the parents see you as being on their side, ready to help and unlikely to criticize, the better chance you have of keeping that child close to your grandchild. So, or a grandparent. It was kind of interesting. A friend of mine said that her daughter-in-law told her that she'd rather have her and her husband watch the children when they're in the room, when they're around. She's more comfortable with my friend and her husband because they're present. The parents of the child are there and present to correct the child if the child's doing something wrong. But before they can do that, grandma's doing it. And so they said, "You don't do that. When we're together, you let us take charge." And it reminded me of something that my sister and I did. And like I said, we lived across the street from each other. So we were always together, my sister and I, and our kids were always together. But we kind of made a rule that was set when the kids were very, very small. And unless the kids were into something that was going to cause them harm, we did not correct each other's child. So if my sister's toddler was taking, a hairpin and sticking it in a socket, I would stop that because it's going to hurt them. But if he's picking up another cookie that I know his mother doesn't want, mother needs to correct him for that. That's not my territory. And I think as grandparents, we have to kind of think the same way. And maybe because I have thought that way, I kind of do that with my own grandchildren also. The parents are around, I let them correct them unless it's life-threatening. Then I jump into action. So that's one way how you can stay on course with them because they'll see you on their side. Also, we take a lot of time praising our grandchildren. We should praise our children too. Tell them that they're doing a good job. Tell them that you like that they're teaching them manners. So praise them as much as you can. Parenting can be exhausting. Most parents work full time and take care of their children, and that it might be significantly different from when we were younger, and it is a whole lot stressful. So as much as we can do to help them out is wonderful, but we need to keep in mind that we need to be respectful of their rules, like we've mentioned. Praise them as much as you can, and don't criticize, but give accolades. Oh, the one thing, and let me go back to this one. this last one, creating distance when recalling family stories. Sometimes if you say to mom and dad of your grandchild, well, when you were young, I did this, and when you were young, I did that, it makes you sound like you're the expert and you're telling them how their children should behave. So put a little distance between that, and you might say, well, our neighbor Judy, she used to do this, she tried that and it worked well. You may want to try that. Or, Aunt Kathy did this with your cousin John, and she tried that and it worked well. So if you want to give that a try, you can. So you're putting some distance, and it's not, I did this, I did that. I love this saying too, the simplest toy one, which even the youngest child can operate, is called a grandparent. And we know that to be true. We talked a little bit about maintaining traditions. I think it's important that you maintain those traditions. Don't think that the kids are too old to do that. One of the, and I learned that kind of fast. One of the things that is a favorite holiday for my kids has always been Halloween. I can remember one time when I was working and my kids were old enough to be home by themselves. And I got a call from the kids, and they told me they had pulled down all the Halloween decorations and decorated the inside and the outside of the house for Halloween. Now, I will tell you, it was July 31st. So, I didn't want to break their hearts and tell them put everything away because they worked so hard on it. So you can tell that Halloween has always been an important, fun holiday for my kids. They always love dressing up. So I started a tradition when they started having kids that I had a Halloween party. And as the kids got a little bit older, I have age 6 to 16, I thought maybe they would not want to do this anymore. And last year was the first year that I didn't do it. And I got backlash for that. They wanted to know where the party was, why we didn't do it this year. I really didn't think they wanted to do it anymore because, the older ones were kind of out of that stage. But no, they liked playing the games. They liked getting together with their cousins. So this year we will have the Halloween party again. So maintain those traditions because that's what they talk about. Again, not the expert on any of this. This is grandparenting is all trial and error. Teach them life skills if you can. If you have a hobby that is a life skill, crocheting, woodworking, being around when you're repairing something, don't be afraid to have them be by you so you can teach those life skills. That will not only help them when they get older, but also it's going to connect those bonds between you and them during that process. I know it takes longer and it makes more of a mess, but you have no idea of the connection that the grandchild and the grandparent make when you are teaching them life skills, when you're teaching them, how to bake cookies or how to make bread, or again, woodworking, whatever that you might be good at. Try to teach them those skills. They'll remember that. Give them symbols of yourself, something that you maybe make for them. If you're a crocheter, I try to crochet, not the best, but each one of my grandkids each got a scarf during COVID when I was doing a lot of crocheting. And it was funny because I saw it around the neck of one of my grandchildren this past winter. And again, I'm not a master crocheter. It's very basic. Quilting, maybe a woodwork thing. It doesn't have to be something you made. I remember when my dad died, I wanted his nutcracker. And I know that sounds kind of silly to other people, but coming from an Italian family, one of the things that was done traditionally in our family was the day before Thanksgiving, my dad would crack walnuts and put raisins in it. And after the meal was over and some time had passed, maybe everybody was watching a football game, the walnuts and raisins came out. So when my dad passed, I said the only thing I really want is his nutcracker, and it's just a very plain old-fashioned nutcracker. It's, you know, it's a heavy metal nutcracker, but for him that was a symbol of my father, happy as pie, making his walnuts and raisins. So think of something that you can give to them that will be a symbol that they can remember. Whoops. So let's talk about tips for grandkids of all ages. We've talked about spending time with them on Zoom, in person, FaceTime. It's important for you to keep up with that technology or you're going to lose out. One of the things that I have to get on is not TikTok, but it's the one on FaceTime, because the kids will post something on there. It's the one where you see and I can't think of the name of it right now, where you see the picture and then it disappears after a while, but those are kind of fun to see. Share family stories, recipes, photos. And, I was getting down photos because I was seeing an old friend of mine and I was pulling some photos out, and the kids just happened to stop by for a visit. So then we started looking for photos, and that started some family stories, and the kids were laughing. So again, it's a good way to connect. And so share experiences with them when you can. I mentioned here the choo-choo and Des Plaines. There's a lot of little restaurants that have the choo-choo train. There's one in Bartlett. There's one in Glen Ellen. And I would take my boys. They're kind of outgrowing that now, but they did like going there. They liked going to the car museum in Volo. Um, you know, like I said, we took my granddaughter to that concert. My son-in-law is a fisherman, so we're not. So, he takes the kids fishing, he takes the cousins fishing. So again, any way that you can even get the cousins together is a good idea. We talked about being tolerant and being judgmental. Ask questions to clarify. I just asked one of the kids last week who one of the movie stars was. I'm sure many of you watch TV and they talk about a certain movie star and you go, who is that? So I started asking my grandkids, and they seem to know who's the up and coming. Again, respecting their rules by the parents on certain things, especially those safety things as far as car seats and seat belts. Every now and then the younger kids will get in our car and they think that they can sneak in without sitting in their car seat, or the booster seat or the seat belt. We're not going anywhere. We're not even driving you to school. We are not leaving this driveway until you put those seat belts on. So again, you have to enforce those rules. Babies and toddlers, again, reading to them and read often. It helps develop their language. Fundamental play with them. The cups, the stacking cups, things like that are great games to play with your toddlers and babies. A tea party. My husband's been involved in more tea parties than he'd really like to think about when the girls were little. So, and you know what? Things don't have to be role specific anymore. If a boy wants to sit down and play with the tea party and a girl wants to play with a hot car, let them do it. It's all part of the developmental process. So ages 5 to 12, oh, Jenga, one of their favorite games. So, find out. What we did was, as the kids got older and we started getting rid of the baby toys for them in our house, I started buying some board games, Jenga, and some board games. Tenzi's a fun game. And Slapsy's another fun game. Those are good board games to play with kids and adults. I will tell you the best thing though, and they got tired of playing those things and they didn't know what they wanted to play. And I don't know, I had a deck of cards. It had 2 jokers. I took one joker out and we played the joker game, which is really Old Maid. And the kids love it. And I said, this is kind of like Old Maid when we used to play when you were little. No, it's not. In their mind, it's not the same, but they love playing. They call it the Joker game. And all it is taking a deck of cards, removing one of the jokers, and then matching up the pairs. Great game for the kids. And those kids that I'm talking about that like playing that are 6 and 10. We talked about going to their sports games. It was funny because as I was preparing for this, I asked my granddaughter, who's 13, I said, what is important for you for your grandparents, the adults, to let you know that they're interested in what you do? And she said, well, I love when you come to my soccer games because I know that you're interested enough to come and that you're supporting me. I never thought she really noticed. I mean, I know she noticed, but I really didn't think it was that important to her. On the flip side, I have a grandson who's 10, and I was going to go to his first soccer game, and I could tell he was he was starting soccer again this season. And he felt comfortable enough to come up to me, and he said, and they call me Gigi, and he said, Gigi, you can come to any game that you want, but I really don't like anybody at my first game, my first basketball game, my first soccer game. It makes me very nervous. Once I get that first game under me, I'm okay. And I said, okay, I'll honor that. That's not a problem. I said, but you have to call me when your game is over so I know how the game went. And he did. He remembered to call me after the game. So you have to honor how they're feeling. High school, I think you just have to be there for them. If they're in school plays or sporting events or band concerts, as much as you can go. And again, a lot of that, if you're grandparents that live far away, but I have a friend that lives in Tennessee, and she was able to watch Tommy's basketball games all season because they put it on the TV at school and it was played live. So people that live far away can watch the basketball games. So she knew when Tommy was in, she could have a conversation with him about it. She told him that she was going to be on the, on the, I don't know what you call it, the page that showed the basketball games. So look for common ground in music. It's been kind of fun with my 16-year-old. She really likes the old rock and roll stuff. She loves the Beatles and she loves Queen and she loves all that music. So it's been kind of fun sharing that information with her. But then she talks about these other groups that we have no idea. Arctic Monkeys is one of them. And so my husband and I went on YouTube and pulled up Arctic Monkey and listened to some of their music. So we kind of know what she likes. I can't recall the names of them, but it again, it's showing that interest. Kids don't like to call. So if you're going to connect with them, the best way probably often is text. You can ask them, do they prefer being called or texting? And they will let you know. If you call them and they don't answer you and you know that they're there, you can text them. And usually, my daughter-in-law is that way. I will call her, and unless it's an emergency, she won't pick up, but I'll text her and she's more comfortable texting. That's okay. So we text a lot of the times, and she'll call once in a while. That's just their mode of communication this day and age. So it's just trying to keep in touch with them. I think supporting them and making sure that you know that you are still supporting them. If you do have a birthday present for them and they live in the same town or close to you, ask them to come for a visit. Don't send it in the mail. One thing that says do expect a thank you note, and I want to say that's an error. Do not expect a thank you note. Kids in this day and age do not send thank you notes. They'll text you and say thank you. They'll text you and say they got the present, but snail mail for them doesn't happen anymore. So don't be offended if they don't. It's their generation, and that's how they were raised. We talked a little bit about long distance grandparenting. It's very difficult, I know. Like I said, my sister has 3 grandchildren in Colorado and 1 granddaughter in Montana. Montana's a little bit harder to get to because it's very, very expensive. Colorado's a little bit better, but with airfares the way they are. So, what they do is they use their credit card and pay it off as much as they can so they can get the miles. And they do a lot of FaceTime and a lot of Zoom, and they plan their trips around the bigger events so they can be there for the bigger events. So it really is thinking novel about how you're going to connect with them. These are some of my sources that I used for this. I wish you all well. And does anybody who's been on have a suggestion for grandparenting? I threw a lot out and a lot of it is common sense, but does anybody have any comments or suggestions that they may want to share with everybody else?
Feel free to unmute yourself and make your statement. All right, Chris, I don't think we have any questions, but I will say, while I'm not a mom or a grandma, a lot of your helpful hints really apply to just being that aunt that I am, or the sister, um, or in some cases, even, friends, everybody, when you have littles in your life that aren't yours, those tips really do help.
Yes. Yeah, they do. This is for anybody who wants to support, who's close to a younger, you don't have to be a parent or a grandparent to connect with a younger. I have a friend that moved to Texas and moved next to a family that both grandparents lived very far away and they had no grandparents. So Kathy and Ed were kind of the interim grandparents for them. That couple has since moved away and they still go visit those kids and still bring them presents, and those kids still call them their special names. So yes, aunts and uncles are just as important. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I thank everybody for joining us today. A couple of just friendly reminders. The Aging Better Expo, our 10th one for Elderworks, will be held on August 14th at Stonegate Banquets in Hoffman Estates. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to give us a call or register online. As well as we do have our Make a Senior Smile program going on, which is card making. If you have a crafty sense in your body and want to help with that. And then our Stepping Out to Fitness. Upcoming, we have some very important presentations virtually. There is a scam prevention a virtual presentation by a retired police chief on June 4th. And then we have Chris presenting on June 5th for dilemmas of caregiving and from burnout to self-care. So those two are some that are coming up in the near future, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.